My name is Sarah Dirks. This is Tort Law, EDU 850. I'm going to start first talking about tort liability. So you can see the definition up there: an actual or civil wrong committed against one person or another. But the way I kind of view it with education, it's when educators, staff, paraprofessionals, teachers, administrators do not meet the bare minimum when it comes to supervising students or intentionally hurting a child in some way, shape, or form, either verbally or physically. More often than not, hopefully more often than not, torts in a school setting are unintentional. The ones that I have picked today are unintentional torts. And so we will start first with Smith versus Archbishop of St. Louis. So this is kind of an older one. It happened in the 70s. It was at a Catholic school, an elementary school, and there was a fifth grader, who they were putting on a play, and this mom had made this bluebird costume, and they were getting ready for a play that night, and the costume caught on fire. The child was badly burned. The teacher, who is Catholic, had lit the candle every night for the month of May in honor of Mother Mary. And so even though she had the candle lit every night, she did not, the court ruled that she did not give instruction to students that would keep them from getting hurt. So when it comes to reactive measures, the teacher was held liable for the child's burning. There was a financial payout in those situations. In our building, it would have ended up being probably, depending on the level of education for that teacher, a dismissal offense. Because when you allow a child to be that hurt, then maybe your judgment and safety is not good, or it's in question. Or maybe there is a period of suspension until a formal hearing can be in place in that situation. When it comes to proactive, close to 40 years later, we're not allowed to have candles in public schools. I'm not sure what private schools situations are. So that would probably be the first proactive measure, is if you are lighting a candle, it better be for educational purposes. In astronomy, we do a lab where we look at optics, and I'll have them light a candle. But I am supervising that situation, and I tell them to be very careful. It's a short little candle. We're looking at lenses and mirrors. And what is our professional responsibility in that situation is, at least in this situation, again, a 40-year-old case, but just making sure that kids know, hey, there's a candle, be careful. That alone would have probably worked to take some of the liability off of the teacher. But I'm sure she felt horrible regardless of that. Next, this is the worst one out of the 5 that I chose, but I was kind of just baffled by the situation. So this is a group of 5th graders who went to a park for a drug prevention awareness clarification. And they were supposed to get back on the bus at 12:30 and go back to school. Somehow this child had gotten permission from somebody. There was about 7 supervisors there. She got permission from somebody. One teacher did go looking for her and did not find her. So they left the park at 1, so 30 minutes after. But it did say that he went to this child's house to tell the parents that we could not find her. In the meantime, this child was at the local pizzeria, and somebody had said, hey, your class left. And so she ran back to the park, saw that they were gone, so she started to walk home. 3 middle schoolers, upper element, 2 years older, started accosting her, and then they took her back to one of their houses and brutally attacked her. That all being said, the reactive measure is that the teacher in question who looked for the child, who went to the parent's house, never told anyone other than the parent. They didn't tell an administrator. They didn't tell other teachers to go look for him, like, hey, did you give this child permission to go to this pizzeria? Because if he would have told other people that this child was missing, maybe they would have, somebody else would have said, hey, I gave her permission to go here. The reactive measure is this teacher was definitely in the wrong when it came to just basic supervision. So proactive measures is, I had a field trip last night, and probably because I've been reading this case, but I checked both buses twice. So just making sure that your roster is there, having kids be a bus buddy for each other, communicating with other teachers or other supervisors just to make sure. And you're just professionally, we are responsible for these kids between certain times of the day, and we are in locos parentos. I think I'm saying that right. So we are in place of their parents in that situation, and a parent would move heaven and earth to find that child. But at the same time, backing up proactively, that child should have never been allowed to leave the park or go anywhere without a supervisor or a buddy or something to that extent. So we have there was a lot of things in this case. This is probably one of the most obvious that I read where I'm like, oh yeah, the educator was at fault in this situation. This one is a little more iffy on that, and I understand this is one where the school was held at fault. They left a chemistry lab unlocked. Child got hold of chemicals, put them in a bush. Another child got hold of those chemicals. Most chemicals held in a chemistry lab have to have labels on them to tell you whether they are flammable or not, and this one probably had a label that said it was, and so there is curiosity, obviously, and the child got burnt. So the reactive measure being that there was, in our building, it's hard to say in our building because of how our chemicals are stored, but there would have been probably a write-up depending on what teachers had access to that room before. If it was in a classroom, it would be that classroom teacher. If it was the actual chemistry storeroom, that would probably be a different situation. Proactive, in our building, all of our chemical storerooms, all of our science storerooms have a door that cannot be unlocked. Like, it can be unlocked to get in, but it's always locked behind you. There's never a situation where you can leave it unlocked. And so that's the best way. That's the most easy way to avoid a situation like that. If these chemicals were stored in a classroom, then the best course of action would to be make sure they're locked up in a classroom, and that if they are ever out, that the teacher is always in view of those and makes every effort to tell a student, hey, you need to stay away from these, or I need to supervise you. And again, our professional responsibility as teachers, specifically as a science teacher, is to make sure we go over lab safety with kids and tell them the importance of just not being around these chemicals. Now, this situation, the reason why the school was held liable is the court said that if this storeroom wouldn't have been unlocked, this 8-year-old kid wouldn't have gotten hurt. It doesn't matter what the 15-year-old kid did in that situation. The resulting injury was because of the unlocked door. It was unintentional, but it did lead to damage. Palella versus Ulmer. This one, I chose this one because it's kind of the opposite situation where the child left school, went on a joyride, got in a car accident. The parents said that the school was liable because they did not inform them of the child's truancy. And the court said that even if the school would have let you know about the child's truancy, their inability to notify you did not lead to the accident and did not lead to the injury. So the school could not be liable in that situation, and could not, no claims could be made on the school. So this is one that's also a little iffy, proactively speaking, making sure that every student who leaves that building, we know that they're leaving that building. It's hard in a building of our size where kids are leaving all the time. because they have early release, because they're going to professional, our CAPS program, or they're going to our vocational program, or they're going to JUCO just down the street. Kids are leaving all the time to go to sporting events or something like that. And but trying to do our best to make sure that every door is monitored either by a camera or by a teacher. And then really just encouraging parents to tell their kids to check out in the appropriate fashion out the front door. Our professional responsibility, I tell kids all the time, so like during finals week, their tests might only take an hour and we have an hour and a half in class. And they're like, can we just leave early? And I always say that my responsibility, my legal responsibility is those 90 minutes. And so I want to cover my own self legally and say, nope, you can't leave. Sorry. And so just really hammering that piece home to teachers and to kids that we have a legal responsibility to keep you safe. Easel versus the Board of Education of Montgomery County. We are mandatory reporters. I'm not sure I need to go over this one, but we by law have to report. Whether we think it's a big deal or not, we have to report this to DFS, to a parent, to another administrator, if we just hear it, even if it's an offhanded comment. The fact that this child not only attempted suicide, but was successful is just devastating as well. And who knows if it would have been prevented, if the counselors would have said something or not, but they had a legal responsibility, standard of care to tell someone. In our building, the ramifications of that would be devastating, especially considering some of the situations that our district has gone through in the past couple of years. Proactively, just making sure that the teachers know the rules, the law that we are to follow when it comes to if kids are hurting themselves, being hurt, etc. Mandatory reporting is a thing. And when I read this one, I was just in shock. So those are my 5 cases. I actually borrowed a school law book from a friend of mine and was able to do some more research on some of these. So it was a good lesson for me to learn. I think the long and short of this activity or this lesson is that that when we are in this job, our responsibility is the safety and security of kids, not only physically, but emotionally as well, and mentally. And in most of these cases, there's a physical aspect of this, but there really is a mental and emotional. If a kid can feel safe, then maybe they won't feel like they need to leave school. Maybe they will be more aware of that candle. Maybe they will see an open door for a chemical lab, but they won't steal if there's respect and rapport in a class. So, regardless, we as educators need to make sure that we are doing everything within our power to set boundaries and to follow the letter of the law.